Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight news for the men and women of America's military who defend our country. I'm Mark Martin. We begin with the latest on the coronavirus. A soldier was diagnosed with the virus in South Korea as the president, Congress, and military leaders grapple with how to handle the threat overseas and here in the States. We go now to our CBN News national security correspondent, Eric Phillips, who's in our Washington bureau. Eric.
Well, Mark, it's definitely an unfolding story that is going to be changing over the next several days and weeks as the world faces the threat of the coronavirus. President Donald Trump talked about handling the potential health crisis before a national audience and asked Vice President Mike Pence to lead that effort.
And the number one priority from our standpoint is the health and safety of the American people. We're very, very ready for this, for anything, whether it's going to be a breakout of larger proportions or whether or not we're at that very low level.
I look forward, Mr. President, to serving in this role, bringing together all the members of the Corona Task Force.
Military leaders say they have already been addressing the problem.
1st of February, as this emerged coming out of China, I signed a campaign plan that directed NORTHCOM to integrate all of our operations with regard to the coronavirus. The commander, General O'Shaughnessy, has been implementing that. We meet daily. My team on a basis. There's also an interagency team working this. Between him and OSD staff, the personnel in readiness, we've issued a variety of memorandums advising the force on how to deal with the coronavirus, the tools in their toolkit. We continue to respond to requests for information. I've empowered the commanders. In this case, Indo-PACOM, I met with Admiral Davidson yesterday, but I get frequent updates from General Abrams on the peninsula with regard to what's happening in Korea. But we're taking a look at all this. My first priority is protection of our people, both service members and families, and then make sure we protect our ability to accomplish our mission. So those are the two priorities for me. And then third, I want to make sure we can support the interagency as they need support from DOD and what we bring to the table.
Members of Congress questioned Defense Secretary Esper and General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, about the growing concern over the virus.
There is some urgency. I think that's urgency that we share and members of this committee share. Public health officials have been ringing the alarm bells for quite some time. I think we are out of time. General Milley, would you care to comment on that?
No, I think the Secretary is exactly right. We've got to get with General O'Shaughnessy and assess the situation, but also with Admiral Davidson and General Walters over in Europe, because it is spreading, we can't give you a definitive answer whether we're going to need additional resource or not. We are taking all the appropriate measures right now, and we're doing the estimates of the situation, so we owe you some answers.
Meanwhile, more bases and troops could go under lockdown as the number of cases are expected to rise in places like Germany and South Korea, with potentially spreading to military personnel. Bases have also been closed in Vicenza, Italy, where about 7,000 soldiers are stationed. Many of them live there with their families and cannot access base schools, childcare, gyms, and chapels. Military.com reports there are somewhere around 35,000 troops in Italy alone, according to Air Force General Todd Walters. Mark.
Eric, what else did Esper tell Congress?
Well, he was very sure to reassure Congress yesterday that, in fact, they are doing everything they can to address this coronavirus situation, that they're on top of it, that they have anticipated problems and issues, and that he is communicating with those who are in the region. His staff is in communication with those who are in the region, basically giving an idea that they are on top of this problem and that the American people can be assured that the protection of the military from this and any other threat is top of mind for him.
What might troops and their families expect next?
Well, I think they can expect, especially in those regions we've been talking about, in Italy and in South Korea, where we're seeing the coronavirus really grow in numbers, really a change in lifestyle for at least the short term. We're talking about large military bases that have been described as mini Americas, I guess you could say, where they have their own churches, their own gyms, their own grocery stores, their own mini communities. But in a situation like this, some of that is going to have to be shut down. So you're going to see a change in lifestyle for some of those folks who are not used to that. I've been reading a lot about how some of the people in those areas feel about what's going on right now. And they're saying that they have sort of a double mind about it. While they want to feel confident that the American government and that those who are in military leadership are doing everything they can to protect them, they also are very concerned as they're watching the numbers grow. And I'm talking about those who are in the military active duty, as well as military spouses and family members who are on these bases in these high risk areas. They want to be, in a sense, feel protected, but they're very concerned about what's going on. And they know in the short term, at least, that could mean impacting where they can go, when they can go there, and for how long that'll be impacted really is unknown at this point.
How is the military also serving in this crisis?
Well, Secretary Esper and Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley were very clear to say that in the midst of all of this, the military will continue to carry out their mission. They will continue to do what they need to do in the places where they are. They'll continue to protect, they'll continue to serve, they'll continue to make sure that the homeland here is protected by doing what they need to do abroad. The mission, they say, will not be impacted by this. At the same time, they realize that the coronavirus threat is a real one. And not just for the civilian population, but for the military population as well. So they are planning to take every precaution necessary to protect the men and women as they continue to serve and fulfill their missions.
All right, Eric Phillips, thank you for your report, sir.
You're welcome.
And you can go to CBNnews.com and watch an interview with our health reporter, Lori Johnson, on prevention and preparation in dealing with the threat of the virus. Here's a part of that interview.
So the CDC is saying get ready for the worst. Might not happen. Probably won't even in many cases, but just in case, we want to be ready for it. That's a good thing to be overly prepared. So what should people do? They should be prepared for shutdowns, for quarantines if outbreaks occur. So the grocery store, your kids' school, even your own where you work, that might be closed. So we need to stock up on food, stock up on medicines in case there are some localized quarantines. Also, people should be prepared as far as the way they interact with other people hygienically. This particular virus spreads through droplets when you cough or sneeze. So you need to try to make sure that your hands are always very well washed. If you are coughing or sneezing, do it into the crook of your arm or into a tissue. But keeping your hands clean, that's the most important thing. And remember that this is spread usually within about a 6-foot radius. And with these droplets, they often go on surfaces, and we can touch the surfaces. So we need to try to get into the habit of not touching our face, putting our fingers in our eyes or our mouth, because, and of course, when we touch food that we eat.
And you can see that full story and interview at CBNnews.com. Just look for the headline, The Coronavirus Outbreak, What You Can Do to Prevent and Prepare. And be sure to stay with the CBN News Channel and CBNnews.com for the latest on the coronavirus as we provide updates from around the world and here in the United States. A peace deal could soon be signed in Afghanistan between Afghan and U.S. forces with the Taliban. President Trump was asked recently if he trusted the Taliban in the ceasefire. He did not answer the question directly, but said forces have already been substantially reduced there in what is now a 19-year-old war.
We're really acting more as a law enforcement agency than we are as a military, because we could win that very quickly and easily if I was willing to kill millions of people. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to do that. We'd win that so quickly your head would spin. And I'm not talking about nuclear. I'm talking about very conventional. But I'm not willing to kill millions of people. So we are negotiating with the Taliban. We've been negotiating with them for a while. We will see what happens. It's a chance of making a deal.
The 2021 Pentagon budget rolled out in February shows a reduction in funding for European defense. It's all part of something President Trump has been calling for throughout his presidency, NATO allies to carry more responsibility for their own defense. The European Defense Initiative would go from $6 billion to $4.5 billion. One Defense Department leader told reporters it did not mean the United States is pulling back from its commitment to the initiative. It was also noted that funding for the Ukraine stayed the same. The U.S. commitment to defense in Europe can be seen in a training exercise for the Army's 30th Medical Brigade. It's all in support of Defender Europe 20. The Army's Clay Beach reports it's the largest deployment of U.S. forces in Europe in the last 25 years.
In one of the largest medical collective training exercises of its kind, doctors, nurses, and medics from Landstuhl Regional Medical Center and the 30th Medical Brigade will participate in Operation Courageous Defense, a 3-day event to test the medical readiness of the healthcare providers on the battlefield. In preparation for Defender Europe 20, the largest deployment of U.S.-based forces to Europe in more than 25 years, the leaders of Landstuhl Regional Medical Center and 30th Medical Brigade combined training objectives to ensure synchronization of the medical force across the European theater.
Operation Courageous Defense has taken us about 6 months to plan. A lot of the planning has come from the company command teams as they have worked collectively to share the resources across their companies to come up with one consolidated plan for how they wanted to prepare and train and execute Operation Courageous Defense.
While Armed Sea soldiers won't necessarily see the same frontline action as those in the 30th Medical Brigade, preparation for such a large-scale exercise is critical for the Roll Forward Theater Hospital that provides medical, health, and wellness support for 4 different combatant commands.
And our soldiers need to understand the mission behind Defender Europe 20 and what it means to train and prepare for an evolving battlefield and how to provide that Roll 4 Level 2 trauma support in a contested environment.
Operation Courageous Defense is scheduled for March 3rd through the 6th at the Alarm Sea Training and Range facilities. Reporting from Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, I'm Clay Beach.
A woman in the U.S. Army could soon make history as the first woman to complete the Army's Special Forces qualification course to become the first female Green Beret. The New York Times is reporting she is working to become a Special Forces engineer sergeant. The Times also reported sources say they think she'll complete the year-long course. There have been women to pass the training up to the qualification course, or Q course. So far, no woman has completed it. It's made up of 6 phases and takes a year to finish. It's considered some of the most intense training in the Army. Our soldiers work hard every day to provide for the common defense here in America and serving overseas. Take a look at this story from Staff Sergeant Guido Galgano on how helicopters are assembled after they arrive overseas.
Soldiers of the 1107th Theater Aviation Sustainment Maintenance Group, or TASMG, recently helped the mission of the 82nd Airborne Division. Tasked with rebuilding, repairing, and providing maintenance to all Army air assets in the CENTCOM AOR, the 1107th TASMG was responsible for getting all the helicopters sent over from Fort Bragg by the 82nd up and running. With long hours and a high operational tempo, the soldiers worked tirelessly to get them all ready, double-checking and making sure all of the aircraft were in peak condition before handing them over, ready to fly, to the 82nd Airborne Division.
We discussed all the logistics involved, where we were going to offload them and what kind of support they could provide, because they provided a lot of the ground support equipment, and their guys actually offloaded the aircraft with us, and then we pulled them over to where they actually were parked and reassembled for flight.
The 1107th TASMG helps the entire Army's mission by providing high-level maintenance on Army aircraft without having to return it back to the U.S. for repairs. Army Staff Sergeant Guido Galgano, Camp Buring.
Coming up, protecting the rights of faith-based organizations that want to help soldiers and veterans.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Welcome back to On the Home Front. Military families can face extra challenges that civilians don't. Many faith-based organizations gladly want to help, but are sometimes hindered by lawsuits simply because of their faith. I spoke with Mike Berry of the First Liberty Institute about how that could be changing. Mike, tell us about this Veterans Affairs proposal that could protect religious freedom when it comes to faith-based organizations supporting military men and women.
Well, the VA recently announced a proposed rule that would reverse an Obama-era regulation that required faith-based social services organizations that want to do business with the VA or the federal government to actually advertise that they are a faith-based organization, that they provide their services from a sincerely held religious belief point of view, and that if a person, and they actually had to advertise that they would refer somebody coming to them to a secular organization if a secular alternative was desired. And so the old Obama-era regulation did not make that same requirement on secular organizations. It only applied it to religious and faith-based organizations, which is discriminatory on its face. So at First Liberty Institute, we commend the VA under President Trump for reversing that rule and for leveling the playing field between faith-based organizations and their secular counterparts.
Why is something like this needed? Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, you've got a lot of great faith-based organizations in this country who love our country, love our service members, love our veterans, and they want to help them. They want to give them all the help they can get. Oftentimes, they do so as nonprofits. They provide these services at a minimal fee or often for no fee at all. And to deny them the ability to do that, and to deny those veterans and service members access to those organizations simply because they happen to be faith-based organizations is just wrong. And it actually ends up resulting in fewer veterans getting the help they need. Why, at a time when we're seeing suicide, mental health issues at such an epidemic in this country, are we denying them access to the help they so desperately want and need?
Tell us about that research on the importance of faith when it comes to members of the military and the dangers of things like suicide. Elaborate more on that.
Absolutely. There's been a number of studies that have been performed that have shown, first of all, that the majority of people who volunteer to serve our nation come from a Judeo-Christian background. They're people of faith. Nearly 3 out of every 4 people who raise their right hand and swear an oath to our Constitution to serve in the military come from a faith background, primarily the Judeo-Christian background. And then there are other studies that show that, our soldiers, our service members, they go through a lot. And a lot of times they come back with injuries. And many times they're physical injuries, but oftentimes they're also non-physical injuries. They are injuries, they're what we call moral injuries or spiritual injuries, and they need help. And other studies have shown, clinical studies have shown, that the more access that a service member or a veteran has to faith-based resources, the less likely they are to take their own life. So if we can prevent even one service member or veteran from taking their own life as a result of serving this nation, then we should, why on earth would we even consider denying them access to that? And, everyone from former POWs who served or spent time in POW camps have said that, faith, prayer, spirituality, connection to God, That's what got them through the hardest times, the darkest days of their time in captivity. So again, the evidence is really unmistakable and undeniable, and we need to be doing everything we can as a nation to get help for those who need it.
Up next, Army medical staff graduate from a special program that helps them work in civilian hospitals to hone their skills to be ready in the field.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torresadillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Prophecy thousands of years old.
We were called to be a light to the world.
Being fulfilled today. Discover how. Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life. Just call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is. This is what I'm doing.
See how the people of Israel are fulfilling prophecy.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
By sharing their knowledge.
In Africa, in Asia, in South America, in East Europe.
And their love.
This is how we work. This is us.
Get to life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
You're watching On the Home Front. America's armed forces are committed to ongoing training for our men and women in uniform. And one example is the Strategic Medical Asset Readiness Training, or SMART program. It involves a partnership with civilian professionals for hands-on training. 36 service members just graduated from one of the programs.
Operation Cincinnati SMART started in February of 2019 when the Surgeon General subsumed SMART, the Strategic Medical Asset Readiness Training Program, from AR Medcom. The birthplace of Operation SMART was in Hackensack, New Jersey, and then where we scale, experiment, and build is what we call the center of gravity, is in Cincinnati. So we marry up 68 Whiskey medic with their civilian counterpart, maybe a paramedic or a nurse, and then they serve side by side for the next 2 weeks, allowing the soldier or airman as many hands-on skills opportunities as they can afford.
Getting back to why I joined, what I love to do, and be patient interaction, it's great. These past 2 weeks have been great.
Most of the feedback that we get from the participants are that they feel more confident in their ability to do their job.
But it's comforting knowing that I've received training, and that now after seeing this stuff, I know that I can actually be prepared and actually apply what I've learned and what I've learned here to anywhere else I go.
So those types of hands-on skill sustainment opportunities change the careers of these medics. They make them feel more enfranchised and motivated, and so they go back to their job now knowing that if they had to deploy, they have the competency and the confidence to do their job well.
We're told programs like this are important because it helps with some of the challenges of maintaining skills for those working at military facilities. They sometimes lack the caseload, volume, and diversity to keep medical staff ready for medical care, emergencies, and trauma care. Well, don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after the break with more of On the Home Front right here on the CBN News Channel.
It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games,
games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
Escalating fight.
Jenna Browder.
Chose his words carefully.
Ben Kennedy.
Plan to join him.
And Amber Strong.
For impeachment grows a little bit louder.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We get out and tell the story of the progress that we're making in this country.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6 on the CBN News Channel.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage, you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to providing financial support to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans. We want to show you a 60-second service member profile of Army Chaplain Major Josh Byrd. He is in the Oklahoma National Guard and works for the state of Oklahoma's Highway Patrol as a state trooper, serving his nation and his state.
With the Army for going on 22 years, and with the Highway Patrol as a trooper for 11 years. I've always thought that resiliency was having a solid foundation to stand on. For me, that was my faith, and it's also what kind of brought me into the chaplaincy.
Being a trooper and a guardsman at the same time has been unique in certain situations where I will be out responding to an event as a trooper, but knowing the actual guardsmen that are going to be there and already having that relationship built.
Regardless of what role I'm in, I'm constantly encountering people who are either in crisis or they're coming out of traumatic situations. And in both jobs, I can provide them the tools that they need to help get through that.
And we thank him for his service. And that's all for today, but you can find more of our exclusive news coverage at cbnnews.com and on the CBN News Channel anytime. Have a great day.